Joining me now for the news review segment, we have a lawyer and member of the NDC's communications team, Hamza Suini, and also political aide to former Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, Kofi Tonto. He joins the conversation as well. Kofi, Hamza, good morning.
Good morning to you, bro.
Good morning, Ben, and good morning to your cherished viewers out there.
I guess it's a morning of the beards. The beard gang. Only different levels.
I know, right?
I think I'll be grandpa, this is Papa.
Mine is more tuned in such a way that I can appear before a judge without any issue.
You can appear before a judge, and of course, he just pointed to the legal issue where going to court would mean that. That's always something I found rather interesting. You remember when this conversation came up about the vestiges of colonialism and even the wigs and everything, and the robes in our part of the world?
Yes. I think that I have always said that maybe Africans are more conservative than we think of ourselves. So sometimes change is a little bit difficult when it comes to our settings, but that is the way we are.
I'm putting you on the spot, but do you think some of these things should change over time?
Absolutely.
These robes, this wig, and all of
Absolutely. I think that because of my exposure, because I've had the opportunity of practicing briefly even in the United Kingdom, and I was not subjected to this hell of wearing robes and stuff like that. In limited cases, yes, when you appear before the Supreme Court, maybe you would wear the robes, but not with a wig. So clearly, we can begin to have that discussion. Our weather is not friendly to some of these.
Yeah, the heat.
So I have to be careful with what I say. But
I know. But Kenya has had, you know,
there are many who would argue because of their conservative approach that this regalia defines the legal profession. It makes the legal profession what it is. And so for them, maybe they don't see the reason why we should move away from it. But it depends on the individual. I feel that the time has come for us to begin to have those discussions. At least we should make it a bit accommodating and relaxing for us to even appear before a judge and be ourselves, you know.
Right. And Kofi, I'll come to you on those same points, but I just wanted to add, because he's a lawyer, I just want to add as well, the former director of the Ghana Law School, or the Ghana School of Law, talking about, you know, access to education. And then Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekbo's push for access to be broadened so that the Makola monopoly will be broken. What's your quick take on that? I mean, since we started here, I just want us to end.
Yeah, I think that it has been long overdue, to be honest with you.
Right.
But we must be careful with the kind of wholesale production of lawyers that we intend to do. It is important for us to begin.
And Sansari says we're already churning out
but it's
lawyers who can't even move a court. That's what he says.
Oh, but, well, it depends. I will not.
And he used churn out. And you know churn out is used in a negative connotation.
Yeah, but
it's not like a fan belt. We are just producing.
I don't think that is the case. Because even if you look at our ratio in terms of the numbers, it is not encouraging. Ghana should have gone past these numbers when it comes to lawyers in the industry. But I think what we need to do is simply to open up Makola, make it possible for many of these institutions to be able to run independently. But when it comes to our examinations, there are some key courses that we can examine centrally. That Makola should still continue to be in charge. For instance, if you look at the United Kingdom, we have what we call the BSB, the Bar Standards Board. So you can go to any institution at all to do your professional course. But when it comes to these key courses, maybe criminal litigation, civil and advocacy, these courses, they are centrally examined. So irrespective of the school you go in, sit for the exam, and you write. And at the end of the day, they publish the names of those who are qualified to be called to the UK bar.
Right.
And when that is done, then you now begin to compete for pupillage slots within the United Kingdom. And it's difficult to get a pupillage in the UK.
Yeah.
Extremely difficult. So you may have been called to the UK bar, but access to pupillage would make it impossible for you to practice within the jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But interestingly, there are many other ways you can equally practice even before you are given pupillage to do. Right. So these are some of the discussions we should have. It's not just enough to shut down Makola in terms of that monopoly status, but we must be looking at putting in the structures to ensure that at least those who are producing are actually up for the market and can do the job that they have been trained to do.
I have touched a nerve there. I see you are waxing lyrical. Kofi, what would be your... I mean, you can share your thoughts on all of these.
I'm not in the legal profession, but at least...
you've observed.
A few friends that I know find pride in wearing the regalia. You know.
I know.
I know friends who like to wear their white shirt with their black blazers and
because it shows you.
I mean, they cherish it. Yes. So for me, well, I think the issue is more on the systemic issues relating to making sure people have enough access to education, law education, etc. But then the question is, as you rightfully put it, you are churning out hundreds and now almost thousands every year. But 90% of such lawyers are within Accra and Greater Kumasi.
Yes.
So what is the point? Are you going
there
to
are some regions with practically no lawyers.
You know, so
the upper regions. I think one of them.
Upper East, Upper West, very low numbers. Yeah. You know, so the question is, are you churning out a lot of lawyers just for them to sit in Accra, become overly saturated? How does it affect the quality of the practice?
But at the same time, you can't compel them to practice in certain places.
One thing you also need to take into consideration is the culture. For instance, the northern region.
Okay.
Even if you're a lawyer there, it is going to be
difficult to get a case.
Their nature is such that they don't really like this idea of taking people to court and rushing here and there. They would want to resolve it in another way. Yeah. So that is why the numbers So that is why the numbers in the northern region appears to be a bit low. Okay. If you take Upper East, Upper West. So it's
cultural implications. Exactly. Okay, that's fine. But it doesn't change the fact that 90% of the lawyers will be in Greater Accra and then Greater Kumasi.
That's true.
So for me, do we want to just produce lawyers? But then it's a case of democracy and people's right to education. If somebody wants to pursue law and they have the requisite knowledge and they can do it, why deny the person? You know what I mean? So, and then also, if we are producing quality lawyers, they may not necessarily even be here to practice here. They can gain the education. I mean, don't we have a Ghanaian justice in Gambia?
It's not one. We've had a number of them.
A number of them.
I think some have gone to other jurisdictions.
Absolutely. And now governments, MPP started it. Now Mahama is seriously looking into it. Exploitation of talent, human capital outside. So why not? So I think it's a broader conversation we have to have. But I'm not a legal person. I'm just sharing my opinion as a layman.
With your friends who like to use that. I mean, yes, I know some of them who like the whites, but the gown and all of that, I know quite a number who are not exactly enthused about it.
And just let me add this though, because every jurisdiction has their own legal processes. So the fact that you become a lawyer here doesn't necessarily mean you can easily become a lawyer in another country. I just want to add that. I'm just saying that once you have the foundation, easier to, just as you did in Britain. Now you've been able to come here to also practice. Yeah, that's all I want to say.
I mean, there are different dynamics. Some are even common law jurisdictions, others are civil law jurisdictions, others combined, like in Canada, where you can. So it depends on all of that.
Also, even in the United States, depending on the state you find it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so this was my thing I threw at you people. So now let me have your thoughts. If you can limit it to about 1 minute, it will be fine. You know how we do it. If there's something on your mind that you'd like to talk about, just briefly before we get into the papers. I'll start with you.
Mine is in politics, and it's just ad hoc. There's one thing that we always complain about, Hamza. Typically we say, you give something to politicians, and then they will do it, and the quality is below standard, etc. But increasingly, I'm finding that challenge within the private space as well. It's a personal problem. So I have a few apps that I use on my phone. And because this is a very big platform, I wouldn't want to mention any name. But it has to do with some of the major telcos and some of the major banks. It's almost like every day the app is not working. Every day the app is not working. I went to Kumasi and I had to wait 3 days to access my bank app. So the question is, we are always blaming politicians and the public service, and we are always putting out or churning out terrible quality, but then you go into the private space and you find the same challenges. So
For some of them, their internet is almost always down. Go to the bank.
So my point is it really about a section of Ghanaians, which is those in politics, or is it an orientation problem as a society, how we go about implementing solutions? You know, and it's something that, because as I speak to you, since yesterday, I've been trying to access my bank's app.
So how does it make you feel then when Sam George talks about, you know, he's trying to get the telcos, whip them up, provide better quality service, data, calls, and all of that? What do you think about that?
Of course, that is why he's there, except that he spoke too much, and his own words are catching up to him.
Okay.
But the basis that he needs to challenge them to do better, of course, that is why he's the minister, and we all encourage him to hold them accountable to do better. And definitely no two ways about it. But when it comes to Sam George and the things he said and what he has delivered so far, oh, my brother, do you really want me to go into it?
Oh, I'm just asking,
Sam George talking
is it linked to the work he's doing now?
No, the things he criticized Esla about and what he's doing now. It's not about him.
Is it about the re-registration? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's just an example. It's about the things he said about CST. You know, Sam George actually sat on TV and said that if President Mahama does not remove the CST in his first budget, he will openly come on TV and attack him. I can go on and on.
I see.
The things he said about SMP, which is the market share and the decisions Esla took. The things he said about data prices. I mean, we can go on and on. But I don't want today to be about Sam George, because my issue really is about quality implementation of solutions for Ghanaians, whether in the private or the public sector.
Okay.
And I find that the challenges abound even in the private sector that we expect them to do
better.
Do better.
All right,
yeah.
Hamza.
Yes, I think even before I go to my issue, let me briefly state that in opposition, your number one responsibility is advocacy. And so if in opposition, the Honorable Sam George was engaged in his mandate of advocacy, it would be improper for you to brand that as talking too much. There's a vast difference between governance and your role as an opposition leader or member of parliament. And so now, as a minister responsible for communications, you should expect that what Ghanaians require from him is not talk. And so, action. And I believe he's committed to that. It might take a bit of time for you to begin to appreciate the steps that he's taking at that ministry. Because at that stage, it is not more about talking, it's about action. And he's engaged in that. So give him a bit of time and be rest assured that many of the things that we promise that we'll do, as far as our manifesto is concerned, related to that sector, he's confidently championing that. As for the communication service tax you made reference to, you see, sometimes we need to appreciate the context within which statements are made. These are the same people who decided to take this government to the cleaners for removing the taxes like emissions levy. That we promised that we were going to remove.
There was no.
It was.
There was no emission tax.
We've had these discussions.
It was zero rated.
It
was zero rated.
He allowed you to finish.
Fair enough. I'll respond to it.
I allowed you.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Then the likes of Levy, they took us to the cleaners. They asked where we're going to get money to run the country based on the very promises that we made to the good people of this country that we're going to take off. And so if at the time we were introducing communication service tax, we looked at the situation and we thought that it was not proper. Because, Ben, what time did they introduce it? At the time that we were taking the nation through draconian economic measures with serious implications on the economic livelihoods of the Ghanaian people. You cannot even underestimate the devastating effects of the domestic debt exchange program on pensioners, investors, bondholders in this country, and the consequential impact on banks and how distressed banks became. So you needed to understand the context within which many of these statements were being made.
Right.
And so to take it out of the context and begin to run with it is simply insincere. In any case, I can't expect anything better from the New Patriotic Party because that has always been their story.
Is that a fair statement to make? You can't expect anything
better
of
course,
from...
But for the last 8 years. For the last 8 years.
Hamza, I feel that is...
I don't,
Hamza,
in all honesty, that's my opinion. I don't expect anything better.
Well, to say you don't expect anything better is to suggest something I don't think is...
And you see, now,
Hamza,
not to belabor the point.
Are you minded to withdraw that?
No, I don't. That is my opinion. You see, this is a political party I have been conscious when it comes to trying to understand their ways.
The entirety of the party. Is that fair?
Yes, that's my opinion. You may disagree with it, and you are allowed to.
So you don't think it's right to withdraw that? I don't think that it is a political party that upholds the principles of truth and integrity, and I've always maintained that. Okay. All right.
So now to what is on my mind. Of course, eat.
So it has to be brief.
Yes, I just want to take advantage of your platform to wish my Muslim brothers across the length and breadth of this country well as we prepare to celebrate Eid, the biggest in the year as far as our festivities are concerned, and to also appeal to the corporate world that this is the time for them to step into their corporate social responsibility measures to see how they can help many of these Zongo communities and Muslim communities, because you know that a chunk of them are engulfed in poverty. So if you have a company, whether in the private sector or even government institutions, this is the ideal time.
Okay.
As far as the Islamic calendar is concerned, for them to begin to engage in tangible contributions to uplifting the lives of these communities. It's not just going to throw food at them. We must consider the possibility of coming out with toilets, school blocks, furniture for Islamic schools. That is the way you can contribute meaningfully.
Thank you, Hamza. You have some reactions,
my brother,
just make them a bit brief so that we can get into the papers, because this is just on the back of your own shared thoughts.
Speaking of that.
Okay, Kofi.
Because he went first. So
let me just lay the ground rules.
I'm very brief.
Relax, Kofi. Relax. He just said he would respond to, and I want to lay some ground rules. No. We have to get into the newspapers. He made a point. You have reacted to the point. If he comes in and you want to react again, I don't think it will. So please, Hamza, please bear with me on this one. I can't come back to you, Kofi.
Speaking of that,
that's not fair.
First of all, Hamza, I don't know, and I say this in all sincerity. I don't know, is it Happy Eid or what's the right way of
Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak? Okay. So happy Eid Mubarak to all our Muslims.
But I can still say Barka de Salah, right?
Yes, you can. Right.
Okay, so Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. Unfortunately, the Hajj issue has been a disaster.
What are you talking about? The Hajj village?
Yeah, and
the Hajj village.
Musa Dankwa, no. Those in Hajj. Musa Dankwa tweeted something last night. He said, Ghana Hajj Task Force, totally disorganized and shambolic in Mina. So we sincerely encourage those responsible to try and put things in place.
Right.
Make sure people who are in is it Mecca or Saudi Arabia are properly taken care of. I don't say this with any malice. I'm just saying it to ensure that people get the right treatment. Emission tax, my brother, was 0 rated. No Ghanaian was getting charged emission tax. You can say that you removed the law or you took away the law, but emission tax was 0 rated. So don't create the impression as though people were getting charged for emission tax and you removed it. It's not true. Now, on the issue of sincerity, if I go into
betting tax.
No, of course. I'm responding to a particular tax you mentioned.
Also even inaccurate.
So I'm just saying.
Kofi, you said you'd be brief. So
yeah, I'm trying to be brief, but he won't allow me.
Hamza, please, no interruptions. I beg you.
You see, Hamza, it's very sad what you just said. It just goes to confirm what President Mahama said, that when politicians are looking for power, they say anything to get power. You just confirmed it. That when you were in opposition, it's activism. So you just say anything. No, you don't just say anything.
In that same vein, then it would spread to all of you, right?
Don't quote.
So are you suggesting
we don't just say anything. And that is why they played our videos to us. And that is why we are playing your videos to you.
Context. I told you to be mindful of the context.
What context? What context?
You go ahead.
The time Sam George was talking about CST,
Hamza,
do you remember the year Sam George was talking about CST?
Hamza,
because
just let him
CST conversation didn't happen 2023. CST conversation happened earlier in our governance. So when you bring in COVID, when you bring
I don't remember,
I think
but I
our
know
2018, 2019.
And what was the state of the economy going into
2018, 2019?
I mean, those are conversations.
We didn't have DDEP.
Those are conversations.
No, we didn't have DDEP. We didn't have the things
That's
you
the
are
mistake you are
claiming.
making. You see, that
We didn't have the things you are claiming.
To me.
Please.
You are not Kofi, you are not listening.
Hamza.
Okay.
Kofi, you are not
So
listening.
I think your point is.
I told you that the economic situation of the country.
So in other words, you are saying they are being hypocritical
with
on some
issues
of these
like
points. Is that not what you are saying?
I'm saying
they are not living up to what they
I'm saying
said.
that Hamza is lying because at the time you are referencing, we didn't have.
Lie is a strong word.
No, he's allowed to. I don't take offense to
he
some
just
of these
took us to the.
But the
cleanest.
point I am making is that if
Hamza.
at the time you were introducing the economic situation in the country was dire.
Of course. But Hamza.
And now we are inheriting at a time that you have subjected the
okay, gentlemen.
Another draconian economic measure of DDEE.
At the time we were having CST conversation, we didn't have DDEP. That's
but was that the only economic mess?
But you are citing it as an example.
I think,
of course.
I think. Do you know what? Do you
when
know something?
You come and tell us you can fight Galamsey in 1 week and you don't fight it, you are telling us it's advocacy. What are you saying? What are you saying? When you come and cry about Galamsey, when you were making noise in opposition, you telling us it's advocacy.
The entirety of your presidency was engulfed in Galamsey.
Gentlemen,
when your vice president even lost his voice in the fight against Galamsey, when he was number one, number two man in the land, when your original chairman was an embodiment of Galamsey.
Hamza Suhini, order in court. Do you want me to strike my gavel? Order in this court, please, gentlemen. So let's move on from here. But for the ordinary Ghanaians, you know, for me, for the people watching you this morning, I'm sure whether NDC or NPP, all they are thinking is the ills, the problems. You mentioned the Hajj issue. This wouldn't be the first time. We've had so many issues. If you have a task force, we expect better. We just want our problems solved. So to both of you, I think the ordinary Ghanaian watching you now is just thinking, okay, the banter and everything, that's it. Simple.
That's all.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts. Let me just, on the back of this robe and wig thing, so we can move on. Reverend Latte, who himself dabbles in law, says robes and wigs are mandatory in the England and Wales in the High Court and Supreme Court. I think Hamza mentioned that at the Apex Court, you might have to do that. So, but he says in the High Court and the Supreme Court, and he actually is in the UK. And so he also says it is impossible to run a country without taxation. So when politicians tell the people before general elections that they will not impose new taxes, they are not being truthful. And I guess that also feeds into the recent 1 Ghana cedi on 1 litre of fuel, your energy levy add-on. All right, let's get into the papers now. The Daily Graphic newspaper says 1 Ghana cedi energy sector levy to tackle $3.7 billion debt. That's according to Finance Minister Kasiala Toforsen. Inflation drops to 2-year low. Government statistician advises households, entities to limit discretionary spending. Per some of our checks, it's almost 3 years, right? Anyway, a 3,319.66 kilogram substance tests positive for cocaine. NIB said to destroy exhibits worth over $350 million. Government won't interfere with corruption cases, according to President Mahama. On the back page, Japan reaffirms support for Volivo Bridge project. And isolation, social distancing, good hygiene essential to stop Mpox spread. And that's where I'm going to start, because Mpox, you know, it has hit us. There have been a number of cases across different areas, and it's still there. It's as contagious as any of the other contagions you may know of. So the Ghana Health Service has advised Ghanaians to practice good hand hygiene and avoid close contact with suspected cases of monkeypox or Mpox infected individuals. It said those were key steps that could be taken to stop the spread of the virus in a community. So isolation, if you suspect, social distancing, good hygiene, wash your hands often. And I see people go and they, like, literally they've gone to do number 2, right, in a washroom, and they come out, some don't wash their hands, and they are going around shaking people's hands. Or they will just they open the tap, do this, and they are gone. Like, hey, no soap or anything. It's I don't know whether I've seen it so many times, and sometimes I cringe. It's crazy. Japan has reaffirmed its commitment to finance the construction of the Volvo Bridge over the Volta Lake, a critical component of the Eastern Corridor Road project. Now, the assurance was given by the Senior Executive Vice President of Japan International Cooperation Agency, Miyazaki Katsura, during a courtesy call on President Mahama at the Jubilee House last Tuesday. Let me, for now, wrap with this story, and then I'll throw it to you. Government won't interfere with corruption cases. And President John Mahama has reaffirmed his commitment to preserving the independence of Ghana's anti-corruption agencies, assuring that his administration will not interfere with ongoing investigations or pressurize the agencies to drop the cases. The president gave the assurance during a meeting with a delegation from the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption State Party Review Team at the Jubilee House in Accra last Tuesday. And it says a lot about this, but I think we get the thrust of the message. Any quick reactions or reflections on these matters? Hamza, starting with you.
Before that, let me quickly state that when it comes to the problems associated with the Hajj, it appears to be the case that anytime there's a change of government and there's a new leadership, their first year, they have these challenges. So as a country, we must begin to...
Are you trying to justify
No. That's why I'm saying that as a country, we must begin to engage to see how we can have a standing secretariat for the activities.
I thought we had some sort of...
semblance, but
some semblance
anytime there's a change of government, the new government runs the show. So there's a need for us to have a standing secretariat that ultimately would be under the office of the...
When you say standing secretariat, I don't know what you think about that, which will also bypass... which will also circumvent political...
Yes,
because I think if we had
under the office of the national chief imam.
Know why.
Ben, if you allow me, because
okay, you go ahead.
Yes, so
we'll come back to that point.
At least it can be under the offices of the national chief imam so that they can better manage the affairs of Hajj. But when it comes to these challenges, it happens. When they were first sworn into office in 2017, we had a similar challenge. Because that year, I was preparing to go to Hajj, but because of the challenges associated with it.
Again, Hamza, I was asking, are you going to justify?
I am not. I am following it.
Okay.
But the picture he has painted here this morning is not the kind of picture I have. So, but in the spirit of making the operations better, that is the more reason why I'm not saying his
So it's not the kind of picture you have, but you do agree that things could be better.
It could be that many of the concerns that he has raised is legitimate.
Okay. But I also know, Kofi, before I come to you, that...
Ben, are you going to let me?
I will let you land. But I know that Saudi Arabia, as far as I know, this year, starting from last year, this year, there are more stringent measures.
Absolutely,
and many countries, I've heard of Nigeria even.
Yeah, many of them are having challenges. But you see, that is not even
Egypt
the crux of the matter. You see, whichever way you look at it, we made a promise to make the operations of Hajj better.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. So we accept that responsibility as a new government.
Because
we have shown commitment, even in terms of the fares, by reducing it in excess of about 74,000 to 962,000.
Right.
Something that the MPP couldn't do in the last 8 years, even under the reign of a Muslim vice president. So it's something we take pride in. And trust me when I tell you that we are committed to making these operations better. But having said that,
you have a task force. You have a task force.
Having said that,
I'll let you come to the issues from the newspaper. But he has a reaction, so it's only.
Hamza, I didn't politicize this. I even said that. I was very magnanimous in my commentary, and I didn't paint any picture. I read a post from Musa Dankwa. That's all I did. You see, I am very careful when it comes to religion. I'm not a Muslim, and I know very little about Islam. I simply read a statement, and I said we should do everything to avoid these challenges. And I left it out there.
And I've given you the assurance that we'll do everything.
But you
so Kofi,
bringing in vice president,
Kofi, we can leave it there.
I mean,
but I also think.
Are they not the facts?
The more we
are they not the facts? What I made
politicize religion, I think the better it will be for
that's all I did.
For all of us. And I'm speaking generally. So
yes, I agree, Ben, and I agree with him that it is important for us to depoliticize it. But the most important thing is that I think that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia must take a cue, because remember, he was the one who introduced politics into the Hajj issues. told us that he needed
Hamza,
a Muslim as a
Hamza,
president.
let's go
Hamza,
past that.
So they
go
keep
there,
running away from their
If
ways.
you go there, we'll
These
do
are
the
the facts.
politics.
I don't want
If you go there, we'll do the politics.
You are
If you go there, we'll do the politics.
pretending that you are not
Hamza,
doing politics.
Hamza,
If you go there, we'll do the
beg of you.
politics.
Let's
No, you are
not.
allowed
Let's
to.
not.
Very
Kofi, I'm
respectful
trying to
and sensitive
You are allowed
to
to
the
do
religion.
I'm trying to de-escalate
If you want
from
to
his
go
end.
there, we'll go there.
So
Let's
relax,
go there.
relax.
I'm more than willing because the facts
we are not
politics.
we are not going there.
It's
We are not
not
going
a
there.
fact that under them Hajj
These
was
issues,
in the region of 74,000.
Hamza,
It's a fact.
please.
Is it not a fact that under us is 62,000?
Okay.
These are facts. And I've told you
if it goes on like this, I'll let your microphones be muted. Thank you. Oye. I beg of you, politicians. Some lines I don't like crossing.
That's why I've kept quiet.
Don't bring politics into ethnicity. Don't bring politics into religion. I beg you, guys.
You see.
Let's focus on
Ben,
this.
but this is important.
No, but
Your station,
I also think it's
your
unfair.
station is
I think it's unfair. Hamza, let me have my say here. You can have your differences, political differences. I mean, after all, in the elections, there was talk about, even in the MPP, there were people talking about, a Muslim candidate, this and that. You don't need to highlight that. And you can have your differences without pointing to the fact that whatever he may have done, why? Because he's Muslim, did he come for only Muslims? He didn't come for only Muslims. He was a Muslim vice president.
That was the invitation.
It didn't mean that. So I think it's a bit unfair for you to go down that road. I don't think it's right.
Is the Hajj affairs, didn't we promise it in our manifesto?
I don't think. I disagree with you on that.
Is it not part of their manifesto
Dr.
promise?
Bawumia has never politicized.
But it was not a Muslim promise. It's a promise to Ghanaians.
Exactly. So I'm responding to it as a promise. And what we seek to do. How is that political in nature?
Thank you, Hamza. Final point. Let's not belabor this and then let's
Dr.
move.
Bawumia has not politicized Hajj, and he will never politicize Hajj.
Okay, point made. Thank you. Government won't interfere with corruption cases, and then there's the isolation, social distancing on MPOX. Any reflections on that? I was going to start with you, but the way you are going, let me start with Kofi, and I'll come to you.
I'm even more
Kofi is
interested.
mischievously pushing in political undertones. Meanwhile, when you respond, he is not happy.
Hamza, please
Hamza,
hold your horses for me. Yes, Kofi.
You brought up Hajj. You brought up
Kofi,
Salah.
let's make the most of the time. Please, let's move on. Let's move on. I beg you.
I'm more interested in the volleyball bridge.
Yeah.
Is it volleyball or something?
Yeah, volleyball.
Yeah, volleyball. Yeah, so I think it's a good thing. Definitely something very positive that we must all hope that it sees the day of light.
Right.
We've worked with the Japanese before on several projects. The motorway projects. Is it the motorway runabout, they call it? That was a Japanese-funded project. We had phase 1 and phase 2 of it, which phase 2 President Akufo-Addo recently commissioned. So it's a very good thing. And I sincerely hope that we are able to do that. Unfortunately, in Ghana, one thing we don't really have many of is such projects. Bridges over, big rivers and
Just this morning, we were talking about one in somewhere in the Oti region, which needs. And if that bridge doesn't work, I mean, many communities, at least 3 communities, suffer.
Okay. Yeah. So I think these are some of the major investments that we have to make. So I'm sincerely hopeful that this really sees the day of light, because sometimes these conversations will come up and then it never materializes. On the other one, I think you mentioned what else? Monkeypox. No?
Monkeypox, yes.
Yeah. I think
hygiene
it's
practices.
A hygiene issue. But then the question is, how do you even know who has monkeypox? Do you know how it looks like if someone has it? I will find it very difficult to know unless it is very obvious. So I think we need more education on TV to see how it looks like, so that Ghanaians can identify and do our best to stay away from it. So those are the comments I'll make.
Hamza.
I think first on the statement of President Mahama that he is not willing to interfere with corruption cases. It is important, especially at this time, because I know as a matter of fact that when the Ashanti Regional Chairman of the New Patriotic Party was picked up by the state investigative bodies. There were many people who called, especially people who are aligned to the New Patriotic Party, who called.
Can you speak up a bit more?
Who called for His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama to intervene in what they considered excesses. But it is important to note that when it comes to the operations of these institutions, they are regulated by its establishing acts. And so there's the need for us to give that reverence to their establishing acts and allow them to be truly independent. Because over the years, what has been the bane of this country's, if you like, accountability drive has always been the kind of partisanship that has characterized our state institutions. Regardless, and this I'm not making reference to only the New Patriotic Party. In one way or the other, I think that the National Democratic Congress has also been accused in the past of interfering with investigative processes when it comes to accountability or holding past officials of other political parties accountable. So the time has come for us to demonstrate that commitment and actually show that as leaders, we are willing to allow our state institutions to operate without any form of political interference.
Right.
That is the reason why I consider that statement very, very important. And knowing President Mahama, he has demonstrated that throughout his political life in terms of fidelity to the laws of our country and willingness to allow institutions to work, even if it is going to be a cost to him politically, because we saw it in the unfortunate incarceration of the likes of Abu Gapele, who happened to be one of President Mahama's friends and a comrade within the National Democratic Congress.
Okay.
But even as president, he allowed state institutions to carry out their investigations that eventually led to his incarceration. So the examples abound when it comes to President Mahama. Again, when leading members of the New Patriotic Party took advantage of their constitutional right, filed petition against Mrs. Loretta Lamte, President Mahama under Article 146 respected the tenets of Article 146, followed it through, that eventually led to the dismissal of Mrs. Loretta Lamte. So that track record, when it comes to His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, is there. It cannot be contested. But it is important that we all, as political players, behave in ways intended to protect the legitimacy of these investigative bodies. And we must take the call serious.
All right, thank you very much.
But the issue of health, like Kofi indicated, I don't think that I'll be able to identify the symptoms if I see one. And so...
You mean of Mpox?
Yes, the Mpox.
Well, there are some, if you start seeing some lesions, it's just that, you know, I don't know whether you've had chickenpox before.
Yes.
They sort of materialize in the same way, but they are just bigger, and there are fevers and other things.
So even at our level, we seem to have challenges in terms of coming to terms with the symptoms. That tells
no, the symptoms are known. We've had conversations where they tell you about what to expect, but don't take it for granted.
Yes, I'm just making the point that it is an opportunity for our health professionals to up their game and engage in an educational drive.
Okay, so more education
at least
needed.
We begin to understand what the issues are, the symptoms to look out for, and how to respond to them when we begin to notice these symptoms. It is important.
All right.
They should not just take it for granted, because even those of us who are educated, in all honesty, it will be difficult for me to identify the symptoms. How much more somebody who is down there, either in the Upper East, Upper West, or Northern region.
So it's definitely a charge for more education to be done.
Of the role of National Commission for Civic Education. I think that they must begin to take advantage of some of these issues to actually live up to the true mandate of their establishment.
I'm sure my good friend Kathleen Addy is watching. I know they do their own bit. They definitely need more support, but I'm sure they will get the work done. Let me also bring in MFA Akosia Aditi, who is looking gehe-ish. I'm sure the gehe fraternity would love your outfits this morning.
They love this color. Hey, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's been quite a time with you guys watching you on the screen.
and we've been talking about, you know, everything from law and corruption. I don't know what you think about this bit. Kofi, I'll come to you in a bit, but government not interfering with corruption cases per the president. I don't know what your take is.
I mean, yesterday, I read that news on the midday bulletin, and then the part that really caught my attention was declaration of assets, when he says that, well, during the constitutional review, he really thinks that that part should be reviewed, then I'm thinking, the code of conduct in a subtle way invites government officials to at least do better. At this point, what else can they really review that bit in the constitutional review point to, what can they implement on the face of it? What can they take out? What can they really add? It really goes all the way back to the government officials again, because human beings will always find a way to maneuver when it comes to asset declaration per our culture. But I know that every government that comes will pledge that, well, they will not interfere in corruption. It's taken for granted and as granted that you do not interfere in corruption. But how we know is time, isn't it?
Well, sometimes they say they will not interfere. They will enter, maybe not
but
fear.
Not
fear. Reflections on these stories.
President Mahama has already interfered with the fight against corruption.
Has he?
How?
When you come into power and you file what they call nolli something.
Nolli prosequi?
Yeah, nolli prosequi. And your friends and your cronies, you discontinue cases related to them. Is that not interfering with the fight of corruption?
And you have evidence that these people were friends, were cronies, or because someone got an appointment, so it means that person was a friend or crony.
So what are they? Do you want me to go through the list?
Let's go
Who
through
are they?
the list.
They are NDC politicians.
Okay.
Whose cases were in the court and they were discontinued. And then immediately after you discontinued those cases, you go after your opponent.
So is that to say that in the past, when the former AG also discontinued some people's cases where there was the thinking that some of these people may have leaned this way or that,
what I know is that President
these people
Mahama
were
discontinued
friends and cronies.
Cases of persons who are in his political party. That's what I know.
Okay.
And now he's going after people who are in the opposition party. Now, when you talk about not interfering, if you even look at how Wuntumi's case was handled, the unfairness, the treatment that was meted out to him. But these cases are just a few examples of how a government will interfere. You don't necessarily need Mahama to make a categorical statement that do this or do that. We know how governments run. The decisions are made under G, as we call it. And the implementation are done by the officers in charge. Look, we heard commentary from Mustafa Bande and all these people who will deal with you, will come after you. When you make such commentary, how am I supposed to believe that you'll be fair to me?
Okay, beyond the commentary, if the people have actually done anything that is criminal or leaves them civilly liable, should it be swept under the carpet because they are politically
Absolutely
exposed?
not.
Okay, I just want to clarify
Absolutely
on that.
not.
Once that is
all
clear,
that I'm saying is due process must be followed.
due process must be followed. Okay.
Identify what the crimes are. Put your what they call your evidence together. Put your docket together. Go to court. Hold the person accountable. Go through. You see, the point is that when you prosecute or persecute people, especially in the public arena, take, for example, Adubuahin's case and the things that are emerging now.
Which things? The last I heard, two witnesses, two people who were involved are apparently singing like canaries. And I also hear that one person who sent a sum of money into a certain account is claiming
what I also read is that
she was misled in a way
what
that she
I
didn't know
also,
it was going
what
into
I
a
also,
private account.
You see, the thing is that what I also read is one person saying that every money given to him was sent to the institution that he was responsible for and not to his personal account. That's also a story I read.
So we'll leave that
but the point is,
the courts to
exactly
deal with. Right.
And that's the danger. You heard something, I have said something.
It's sub judice.
Exactly. So when you put out these things in the public arena, this is what happens. You hear, I hear, he hears. So let's leave it to the courts. Let's allow the courts to work. And if people are found culpable, let's hold them accountable.
Okay, point made. Point made. I think you had spoken to this issue already on corruption because you mentioned Abu Gapele, but quick thoughts on that.
It's important to make the point that when it comes to the decision of the Attorney General to file a nolle prosequi, there is absolutely nothing illegal about that decision, and it is not an interference when it comes to the fight against corruption. Our Constitution makes provision for that. You see, even in filing a nolle prosequi, he was not mandated to give reasons, but because he appreciates the political context within which he operates, he went beyond the legal limits and proceeded to provide reasons why the state had to file these nolle prosequi in many of these cases, about 2 or 3. And indeed, he made reference to the fact that there was even an internal memo sent to the former Attorney General by the state attorneys before the NDC came into office, calling for the filing of a nolle prosequi because there was no case against these guys. It was not the NDC's making.
Which memo
that you failed to do due diligence.
You know that
please,
memo.
Please, oh, come on, Kofi, I was quiet.
Sure.
With your distance. So that is what you need to appreciate. That is not the same thing as interfering with the processes.
Okay,
and
all right.
Let us give President Mahama that due regard. I can understand the obsession, especially now, to put things on him. You made reference to the Wontumi issue. Then, what did President Mahama do? What action did he take? You consider and thought. The gentleman was arrested by IOCO using a warrant. Now, he was taken to the IOCO offices. Under our laws, IOCO has the police power of arrest under our criminal code. And it is also clearly stated in the IOCO Act. So if they have exercised that power of arrest, and they were mandated to hold the gentleman for 48 hours. Okay. And they complied with all.
Listen. That was not true.
I get the point you're making. All that you're saying, we already know. So I don't want us to belabor that.
Under our laws, they are mandated. They can keep him for less.
Yeah, but that's not mandate. No, you can keep him up to. It's not mandate. So don't pedal for.
Kofi, let me do this. It's not mandatory in the sense that you don't necessarily have to keep the person for that length of time.
Exactly.
Listen, I'm simply telling you that the law allows them to keep the gentleman for 48 hours.
But that's not on Hamza. If the law allows you, it is part of their mandate.
No, but you don't.
No. It's not mandatory. It must be 48 hours.
It must not.
Are you guys going to make me allow me to make?
You are correcting.
But you go ahead. Go ahead. Just wrap on this point. Wrap on this point.
No.
Wrap on this point.
Kofi, I can do that better than you.
But you've done it.
So under our laws, they are mandated. They can exercise that discretion.
They can exercise the discretion.
Yes, they can exercise that discretion to keep the gentleman for 48 hours.
Right.
They did. Now, if you have any problem with the process, the law also creates an avenue for you to take advantage of.
Why I don't want you to go on this trajectory? Because even Andy Appiah could be...
When you were going on it, you didn't intervene.
No. But you are basically saying things we already know and have said.
Are we still talking about the corruption bit? We're still on the corruption bit, right?
And the Appiah Kubi actually said, he already said that the law has not been broken in any way. That's what I'm saying.
But
don't belabor the point.
But so why didn't you tell him when he was making those false accusations against President Mahama and the NDC that we intervened in the Wontumi case? Why didn't you tell him that?
He was talking about, he was saying that there were a number of cases where nolle prosequis have been brought in, and he feels that it is political. That's what he said.
No, but I responded to that. And he made reference to the Wontumi example and said
so this is specific to Wontumi.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So point made.
Thank you. Every opportunity to have pointed to him that
thank you.
Andy indicated
right.
that there was absolutely nothing wrong with the process.
Okay.
So it cannot be an example.
No.
It cannot be an example. It cannot be an example of President Mohammed's interference. What happened? The noise and the confusion that characterized Wontumi's arrest was all engineered by their state of confusion and incompetence.
Thank you.
And their quest to
complete In the end, we'll leave the process. We shall leave the process,
of investigating Chairman Wontumi.
We shall leave the process. We shall leave the process to the law courts. We've been told that there are criminal elements to it and whatever. We are not justices of any court. We'll leave the law courts to deal with them. MF, I'm going to take sections of this and come to you so that you lead the conversation from there. The one Ghana Cedi energy sector levy to tackle $3.7 billion debt. That story is on page 13. I'll read very brief snippets of 3 stories. And Parliament has passed the Energy Sector Levies Amendment Bill 2025 to impose a 1 Ghana Cedi levy on every litre of petroleum products. So we know of that already. Inflation drops to 2-year low. And the rate at which prices change over time in the country, otherwise known as inflation, has fallen to its lowest level since February 2022, offering hope for households and businesses grappling with the rising cost of living. The Consumer Price Index, which measures inflation, recorded 18.4% for May this year, down 2.8 percentage points from 21.2% in April 2025, and 4.7 points lower than the 23.1% recorded in May last year. And then there's the cocaine bust by the NIB. MFR?
Yeah, maybe I should start with Kofi. Yeah. I'll start with you. Let's go to the inflation bit. I mean, you've been in this country for a while. Do you really appreciate that it's true that inflation has dropped?
Yeah, inflation has been has been trending downwards for the last year or so, except for one instance where it shot up again, I think about 1 percentage point or so, I think around September, October. But otherwise, you know, inflation has been on a downward trend. And anybody who follows the economy and understands the economy will tell you that inflation will continue to drop. Because once the economy...
But it's the quantum, isn't it? It's about the quantum.
No, it will take time. You know, it's not going to be...
You know how long we stayed between around 25, 26 and 22?
No, I'm saying that inflation has been on a downward trend. And I've also said that there are instances where, or exceptions...
There was an exception, 1 or 2 months. I remember one at least.
And that's why I referenced that there were those exceptions. But generally, inflation is on a downward trend. It can be 1%, it can be 3%, it can be 5%. But it is on a downward trend, largely because the economy has rebounded, as we said, IMF said, World Bank said. So these things are expected. So I am even hopeful that by the close of the year, inflation should be getting close to a single digit. So I think that is expected. Nothing new.
I don't think that matches expectations. If you look at the projections that have been
projection,
I think this one you are trying to put something around the neck. So
well, he's
the projections don't.
I'm trying. No.
I'm talking about projections from the ratings agencies, from government itself, even the budget. It never talks about inflation going to, you know, single digits.
So what you think
that's one day.
Kofi, is you and I.
Projections
look above Hamza and look at me.
Projections from these institutions puts it about 11% by the close of the year. I'm saying that I'm hopeful that we may even go lower because we are seeing a downward trend and it's going to continue. Of course, there are going to be some hiccups, largely because of some of these things. So, for example, yesterday, VIP, I was speaking to Adakabre, and he says that VIP took a decision to reduce the cost of fares for VIP. But they reversed it because of the levy that has just come up. These things may cause some breaks in the downward trend. But largely, I expect it to continue to. And I'm saying that I'm hopeful that we will even go below the 11% projection. How is this propaganda? So I cannot be hopeful for my own country anymore. I just don't.
I like your optimism, though.
Oh,
Kofi,
that's smile on your face.
I'm glad that we have given him that level of optimism. I think that it is something that the NDC should be proud of, because for Dr. Mahmoud Bamiya's political aides to be optimistic that when it comes to our inflationary figures, it will definitely go down. That means that this government is doing something that the government needs to continue to do.
It has nothing to do with your government.
But
it has absolutely
hang on, Kofi, it has nothing to do with
I've told you already.
Can inflation drop automatically?
No, inflation.
Brilliant question.
Look,
Kofi. So let him come through. But if you say it has nothing to do with their government, you would ask yourself, why has the exchange rate,
Bernard, I remember
the way it has? Why is inflation falling? Did you listen to the quantum I was talking about? That's why I mentioned quantum.
The inflation.
So sometimes politicians politicians
make the point
to say
clearly.
Anyway.
Make the point clearly. I'm not an economic student, so let's learn a bit.
What I'm saying is
inflation can drop automatically.
No, inflation doesn't drop automatically. What I have already told you is that the economy has rebounded. So a lot of the fundamentals which had challenges have sort of improved. And once these fundamentals, the fundamentals started improving before you even came.
So they've done nothing.
No, I mean, look.
That's why.
You can credit some degree, but it's the severity of credit that you give to them.
Okay, so point made.
So my point is that it's on a downward trend anyway. Any government will see that downward trend. Any government.
Your government didn't see that downward trend.
But what are you talking about?
Because we inherited.
What are you talking about?
Let me hear him first. I've noted your point.
We inherited a very turbulent inflationary rate of about 22% to 23%. We inherited a very weak exchange regime that we started going to work immediately President Mahama was sworn into office to turn around. We inherited a heavily indebted economy. And our external debts alone stood in excess of about 740 billion Ghana cedis.
External debt?
So
no, please be careful. External debt, that's not true.
Both internal and external. Thanks for the correction. 740 billion.
And the debt overhang was 58%.
Can I make my point?
Just be truthful.
Can I make my point? So a total debt stock of about 740 billion, or 741 billion thereabout. Now, this is the kind of economy we inherited. And we had always maintained in opposition that one of the challenges we faced as a country was how reckless the erstwhile administration was when it came to the management of our public finances. And we indicated on several platforms that apart from their reckless management of our economy, what was also the bane was their appetite for corruption, that they had turned the economy of our country to another illegal galamsey pit where they were engaged in mining our meager resources illegally. And so, entrusted with the responsibility to lead, we zoomed straight into action. That is why today you have heard them, Ben, complaining about the fact that government is not spending. Why are they saying that? Because this government is being meticulous and responsible in terms of its fiscal measures. That is why we have decided not to be spending recklessly. Because the more money you have in the system, it reaches a point where the money would be chasing fewer goods because we are not producing to match the quantum of money in the system. So why wouldn't your inflation go up?
I have a question for you. I have a question. I think you made a point. So as a government, how are we measuring temporal price changes to persistent inflation? Because on the outlook, where we can see that prices are dropping, cost of living would say is dropping.
Yes.
But that is temporal.
For us,
both external and internal.
No, for us, we don't consider it temporal.
It's temporal.
No, we don't consider it temporal. We consider it as part of a trajectory geared towards sustaining that particular downward trend, as far as the prices are concerned. So it is not temporal, but the reason is that we are moderate even in terms of our excitement, because we know that Ghana is not an island. And we are dealing with other global factors. So we are making projections to contain many of these global trends. Immediately they begin to show its ugly face as far as our economic management.
But you understand my question, right? That because prices are dropping, it may look as though we're measuring inflation in the light of the pricing. And
no, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that. But the point I'm also making is that you need to understand that many of these things are also driven largely by conscious government policies. And that's why I made reference to the fiscal responsibility measures. And you have also come to the realization that even the Bank of Ghana has decided to put its policy rate up to about, I think, 28%, Ben.
It's 28.
All intended to mop out excess.
MPC didn't change. They kept it at the same rate.
All intended to mop out excess. Well,
the last,
it's been retained at 20%.
The last monetary meeting, they retained it. They didn't.
28%. So clearly, you can see that there is that effort on the part of government to mop out excess liquidity, to free up the economic space so that we can begin to start afresh. So clearly, these achievements, you cannot, on a whimper, take it away from the National Democratic Congress government and that of His Excellency President John Dramani, because these are all measures that we are leading.
All right.
We have told you about the contributions of the Gold Board. in terms of our exchange rate stability. You never did that in 8 years.
So you see,
we have done it in a matter of 6 months. We are responsible in terms of our expenditure. And all these things are interconnected. So when we tell you that we are getting hold of our economy and we are changing the narrative, demonstrating responsibility when it comes to our spending, we are not using $58 million of the taxpayers' money to dig an expensive hole in Accra.
Many economists have suggested
These
that
are the realities.
Honoring
So, gentlemen, I don't want to back off. I don't want to back and forth on
being reported
on this
now.
one.
Doesn't even reflect the CD appreciation.
How so?
Because it is because when we say inflation has dropped, they are measuring what happened in the past, not current. Let's keep that in mind. And the CD just started appreciation about 3 weeks ago or so. So in the next inflation numbers that will come out, then you see this impact in that figure.
So you project that it won't be?
Of course. You see some changes, and like I said, the levy may then affect it. And then also, this levy, this new levy, the 1 CD levy will affect it. And another thing that will affect it is the sustainability levy. You know, the government extended the sustainability.
How is the levy going to affect the inflation?
Because I just gave you an example. You've added 1 CD to every liter of petrol. Drivers will definitely give it back to consumers. Businesses will give it back to consumers.
Do you know what's interesting? Hamza, do you know what's interesting?
Directly.
If you look at the lowest, Kofi, if you look at the lowest contributors to the inflationary rate, right, you would see that transport has actually been at, and it has now fallen to 3.1%. Hold. Education services, 6.3%. Information communication, 9.7%. So even the drivers, like the minister himself said, if you look at the boons to the ordinary Ghanaian, and you even take away this 1 CD, per their estimations, it shouldn't be such a hit.
That's easy, Ben. Don't
just make a final point.
Don't use what the minister says.
No, I'm using what the Ghana Statistical Service has said on transport.
Inflation is affected when all these things are affected, even though it may not be directly. In economics, there are trickle-down effects. So don't sit here and tell me the levy will not impact inflation. It will. Now, I also told you
I don't think anyone has said
yes, he just said it.
It's about the impact. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm referring to what the minister said.
Because you see,
Hamza wanted clarity.
You see, Ben.
He even said, I don't understand inflation, and that's how is it going to affect inflation.
Okay, if you have any clarity, it should be
clarity. You have clarity down.
Yes. You see, let me provide him information. You see, when we talk of inflation, you have to look at government's measures. What he made reference to is revenue mobilization. You are taking revenue, the 1 CD, out of the system. Government is not spending. Government is being responsible in its spending. So if government was taking more taxes and spending recklessly, undoubtedly it will reflect because more money and it will affect the inflation.
To be fair, we can measure. We cannot measure recklessness, but we can measure what he's talking about.
That's what.
We can only hope that government does not spend recklessly.
Exactly,
but in any case, Hamza, you are taking an extra 1 Ghana CD on 1 liter from the people. You are taking an extra 1 CD from my pocket per liter that I buy. Whether or not you are using it recklessly or not recklessly, you are taking
it goes down. Now, let me give you another my sister, let me give you another reason why inflation may not drop as much. You know, in the budget.
He knows. If he's done economics, he knows. That's a very simplistic view.
In the budget.
I don't think it's all-encompassing to think that that is all of it, but it's part of it.
It's a simplistic view. I was emphasizing on the 1 Ghana CD.
In the budget, they extended the sunset clause of the growth and sustainability levy, and even increased the percentage. This tax is largely on manufacturing companies and mining companies. Now, the budget was just passed in March, so it will start hitting companies very soon, and they will also pass it down. So it may have some impact on inflation as well.
So I think that point is clear. It may have some impact. Gentlemen, hold for me. Hold for me. We know of that industrial action being undertaken by the Ghana Registered Nurses. Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives. Kofi, relax. Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives. And the NLC, the National Labour Commission, has said it is illegal. However, at the Ridge Hospital, the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, is still ongoing. MFA Aditi will shortly be engaging Collins Frimpong, our man on the beat. MFA.
Absolutely. Collins, if you can hear me, give me what's happening at the Ridge Hospital. Yesterday, you brought us updates from the Kolebu Teaching Hospital that, of course, nurses were on strike and patients, outpatients mostly, were stranded. Tell me what's happening at Ridge today.
Yesterday, the National Labour Commission issued a statement calling on the Ghana Registered Nurses and the Midwife Association to suspend the strike that they are embarking on. The strike actually began on Monday, and yesterday, Wednesday, was the day where the nurses and the midwives withdrew all outpatient department services. And as you said earlier on, we were at Kolebu. Today, we are at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, also known as REACH. And this morning, we've been to a number of units that the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association stated in their earlier statement that they will be withdrawing services at various places. We've been to the labor ward where myself, I didn't see anyone, I didn't see any nurse or midwife over there. But the officers at the counter told us that the nurses indeed have withdrawn their services over there. And also, we moved to the ambulance emergency service where we saw patients struggling. They are struggling. They are not getting anybody to attend to them. We went inside the main ward. We saw 2 nurses over there, but they won't engage us. And what some of them told us is that they don't know. They can't speak to us. They don't know whether they are calling off or whether they are going to work or not. And we went to the main emergency ward. At this particular time, the nurses are supposed to be at post providing services, but no one was there at that particular moment. Only the cleaner was there trying to mop up the area. I asked the cleaner what was really the situation, and what I was told was that the nurses over there are not working. And this morning, they are supposed to be there working at the moment, but they are not there. But currently, at the main OPD, at the Ridge Hospital, that's the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, if you can see on my right, we have patients here that are currently waiting on the nurses to come in to provide services for them. But that's not the situation. We've been here for about an hour now, and some of them tell us that no one has been here to engage them. We've been inside also to see the situation, and all the wards inside are all empty, with no sign of a nurse coming out. We have the managing director for the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, medical doctor for the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, Dr. Adams, here that I want to engage him. Doc, good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for coming.
You're on the AM show. What really is the situation? How is the strike by the medical doctors or the nurses and the midwives affecting this particular hospital?
So, the nurses in the hospital belong to various associations. Majority of them belong to the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, and unfortunately, they are those on strike. Presently, we don't have nurses at the OPDs, the various outpatient department units. We don't have nurses at post. The emergency unit is in various parts. The part that receives new patients, we don't have the nurses at post. The theaters where we perform emergency procedures, we don't have nurses at post. The antenatal clinics where we attend to pregnant women, we don't have nurses at midwives at post. And the labor ward where pregnant women come to when they are about to deliver, we don't have nurses at post. So what it means is that we are challenged in receiving new patients. We are challenged in receiving patients coming from the house to see us. For instance, on a daily basis, we see over 600 outpatients. But yesterday, because of the withdrawal of service, we saw less than 100. And it was even, there was rain, so I'm sure the impact was not felt as much as we anticipate today. The challenge we are facing is that doctors have to do some of the work of the nurses. We don't have rotation nurses supporting us because the rotation nurses are challenged. They cannot work unsupervised, so they are not available. So the doctors have to do what they can do for the nursing aspects and then still do their work. So we are a bit of, we are under pressure. We're under pressure. We hope that things get better.
The Ministry of Education, the government through the Ministry of Education prior to this strike yesterday, Ministry of Health, yesterday issued a statement that stated that they are going to bring in the rotational nurses to fill the gap that the Ghana Registered Nurses and the Midwives Association strike is going to create. And based on what you are saying, it looks like we don't have that over here yet.
Yes, we don't have that because the rotation nurses are like national service people who are supposed to work under supervision. If we bring them alone here, that means that they are going to work without supervision because their bosses are on strike. So, unfortunately for us, they are uncomfortable to work unsupervised, so they are not available.
And how about security issues? The same statement that the Ministry of Health issued, they stated that they were going to bring in security officials, including the police, to assist with security. Was that one also?
Okay, fortunately for us, we've not had any security challenges yet. We have a security post a police post in the hospital. So at least our police are close by. And if there are any issues, we can easily count on them to assist us resolve. But so far, we've not had any major issues with security that our internal security officers have not been able to manage.
How is the hospital internally trying to reduce the impact of this particular strike?
Yes, so like I said, for instance, at the labor ward, the doctors are those who are receiving the patients now. So when the patients come in, work that the midwives would have done, now the doctors have to assess the patients and then assess the severity of the condition. If it's one that needs urgent attention, they are received. If it's a case that can go home and then come back or go to another hospital, the appropriate decision is taken. So far, the doctors are stepping in to try and perform the functions that the nurses have withdrawn. What it means is that now the doctors are overburdened. And then the members of the other nursing unions are not many. So we don't even feel their presence in trying to reduce the impact of the withdrawal of service by the GRNMA.
I'm grateful to you, Dr. Adams. Grateful once again. So, MFA, that's the situation here at the Ridge Hospital. We all had medical doctor, Dr. Adams at the Ridge Hospital trying to provide information on the situation here at the Ridge Hospital. Let's go around and engage some of the patients here that are currently at the main OPD at the Ridge Hospital who have been here for hours trying to get access to healthcare, but they are not getting. Mommy, good morning. Pacho Frozen.
If I'm fire.
Anope mahu se wabetna be se 1 hour or 2 hours. Unka oba be den?
Me be review for my night.
No, oba no asembe no makaka.
Na se phone ko strike nti egu kakake. Ye ti o refer na ye aba. Ya be ye twe omo a obi amba, obi amehwe ye. Na egu a obi aso, doctor bi aso maka hwenkere ye. Na egu a. Ye hu na ye egu a no. Ye nim da omo de baba. Omo se omo hu nim da omo de baba.
Or appeal be at the study or the better bay.
Yes, Rabbi said, only doctor and nurse phone card or number can also one problem. Near the Yaya for into our someone on Mushay into also one problem no munya quambre, you mana or my membership. I decided, I don't know.
Thank you. MFA, that's one of the patients called Sophia, and she has been here for quite some time now, more than an hour. She came here for a review, according to her, but she has not been able to get any health care from the nurses, and nobody is coming around to tell them anything. All that she is saying is that she is appealing to government to come to the aid, come to their rescue, that's to solve the issues with the nurses and the midwives over here. Mommy, mpacho you're frozen.
Doris.
Mpacho anopenka obabe.
By review. But 4 months no more na mamba. To me buy and see omo strike by doctors nurses phone by atra buy. Nti 4 months near mo say me bra no mamba so ye to me anhwe me nti ha me. Na face so nyame mboa ya nyina na aban na near Omoshushen on your mom, Sene Bear, Yesu Yarina Ba, Yanya say on Beshe, and they want toy.
I did deporting Nankauba Bay apart from review, no, so 1 year in your review now, or how Ben at the Bebel.
Oh, sir, many in the Mabanti. Time of my shaman, dear Drona Camusa and answer. Until I send me back. No more say, at his saying, some best said Drunusua, no master, some man's son of my cousin in Coswa, Nam, my ye. Until I may buy, because 4 months there, what, say, Metrancis, I mean, him down, back, until I have.
Thank you. So she also came after 4 months that she was scheduled to come over here for a review. She's having issues with her eye, and when she came here after the 4 months, no one is here to attend to her. So she's also appealing to government for support. For the nurses to resume from their strike. We have more people here that we want to engage. Mami, Mpacho, Efrozen.
Hajj Aisha.
And I don't pay day and Kaubabe.
Me how ne say me nine me yare me ba hospital. Me ba ntempa me duru ha 5 o'clock. E duru ha yetete ha sa yesi doctor ko strike. Afi so yesi nye doctors na ye nurses. Esi anu me nro nyina so asan. Tinka me ba say nka me hwe doctor ne be hwe me. Na eduro ne bi nso wo ho a me no ma me wo ha kakra. Na nka ma be susu ho a kire doctor na se wo be sesen eduro ne bi ama me a. And the Abetna Hassa, and the shall say, Binom say doctors and a beba, and nurse for what's right. And the shall say doctors and a beba, na say, ya will how we need a catcher or mono mobility ya. Say a chance as soon as or more ma, nature say a cook. Na a ya ba, your appointment, I am my date ya deba. And think and nephew free na yemi dates. And it says, yes, a nurse for na. Now when you be asked when be sanitary, now qua. Into me who said next time, no. You never date ya or mother beba. Na next time so bad date ben I would the besia. And this I see no nurse for instance or mumbe ye who doctors in nurse for instance and my deity. And this I see I how I swear there some pa and I say Yanko Pona and Casabaya Yadon. Tini edited hey, baby co into Yakayania, Yakaya tete Ye nurse need be crying be son as some.
Quite a worrying situation, a sad situation here at the Rich Hospital, and she had an appointment with the medical doctors. She is supposed to be here today, but that's not the situation here. She came here around 5 a.m. and according to her, she came for them to review her and also give her new drugs. Her drugs are all finished, but looks like that won't happen today, and she doesn't even know when to also report, since today is the day that she was scheduled to come. But when she goes home today, she wouldn't know when to come. Let's try and engage more people. Mami, Pacho, good morning. Pacho, Frozen.
From Auntie Teresa, me fit takradi.
Fit takradi na ba say.
Takradi na ba, my appointment time. Maybe ya. Metina kalum be 8 o'clock na mboju ha be 4:30. Mboju
and when you make 8 o'clock.
And that Mbaya was there a nurses worker strike. In fact, I am here because I'm doing a last appointment 6 months time number. 6 months na I was there. Nurses 1 year, you mean to see the other home, papa. Oh, I'm doing a last.
So now, Obayano or nurse will be Abba Bene, and my baby didn't come on, be a nurses and I said, doctor.
That be you nursing, be a young doctor in Biawa. It's a day at a gate man, no, I know Abanwa catching. Yan Chanaka cry and share there's a doctor. Be baba, when you be doing coma, near the hair charm.
Option it is send 1 year solution be or before for Kwana say, Obertrain, our class and
Mini baby fufro, Chidemoko, even Pomo, me the time I would obama for say, yes, even pay Bisanma or sharing time attack Friday, Chidamoko, my son's my baby, no biano noma, my son's my band, son, my budget time for. It's about the end of your hopper, papa. Mini baby, I'm okay, I know where you friend, my behalf for 15 years.
Sad scenes at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital here this morning, and she came from Takrady all the way. She set off around 8 p.m. yesterday, got here early in the morning. That after 6 months, she wanted to see medical doctors for them to review her and also prescribe new drugs for her. But she is not going to get that, and she is appealing to government for the government to come to their aid. Nurses and the midwives to withdraw from, to call off the strike. Here is the main OPD that we are entering, and that normally you will be seeing more patients inside this particular OPD. That's the main OPD at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. But this morning here looks more like a cemetery. Here is silence. No one is here. And over the counter there, that you can see only the bankers there that they are working, the accountant there that they are working. But the chairs here at the main OPD at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital is empty this particular morning. And also you move straight to the emergency ward at the other block too. That's the same situation over there. Even though the emergency ward patients are there struggling, fighting, battling for their life, but no nurse is there to attend to them. Medical doctor, Dr. Adams, has also confirmed the situation and how terrible it is impacting activities at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital this morning. Today is day 2 since the nurses and the midwives withdrew their services at various OPDs and emergency wards across the country.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Quite a worrying situation at the Ridge Hospital, and I can only imagine the other hospitals across the country if the strike action is biting this hard. Now, back in the studio, I'll come to you straight. Well, of course, because you're sitting quite close to me. Now, we've seen the directive from the National Labour Commission that the nurses and midwives should return. Why? Because they failed to appear before the commission when they were invited, plus the Fair Wages Commission. The Fair Wages attended, but they did not. Yeah. And this is what's happening.
I think the Minister of Finance was also represented in the said meeting.
Yeah.
And per our labor laws, they ought to have been part of that meeting. So it is difficult to understand why they decided not to be part of that meeting. It is clearly a breach of our national labor laws. And I'm sure that there would definitely be sanctions. But at this stage, I think that the focus should not be on the sanctions. I've always argued that sometimes we must apply our laws flexibly. Irrespective of what we think, they have concerns that they consider legitimate and they need government to intervene to resolve. As a listening government, I think that we have to begin to engage even more proactively now with them, especially the Ministry of Health should be out there engaging proactively with them. Let us see what we can do in the interim to get them back to their hospitals, because clearly the sight that we have been shown today is quite worrying.
I put myself in the shoes of, if that were your mother.
It is quite
your
worrying.
Aunt or someone sitting there.
I know that we are not running a government that takes pride in applying the laws simply because the law has been breached in terms of our labor laws. We must first of all step in to save lives. We must first of all step in to make it possible for our compatriots and our citizens to have access to good health care. And that should be the focus of this government. But you see, it also raises another issue of preparedness as a state. It has always been my point that there's the need for us to look at the operations of our national security and attach a human wing to it, where in any time that we have situations like this, that wing that is specially trained, especially sensitive areas of our economy, of our livelihood, it should be possible for national security to have had health professionals on their system, their database, that we can move in the interim while we engage. They may not be able to fill all hospitals, but clearly there are some specific areas.
Like we do with our military.
Yes, like there are some specific areas that we can deploy them so that they can hold their grounds to ensure that our citizens have access to good health care. Because it is not their fault that government is at loggerheads with their nurses when it comes to their demands. And you cannot fault the nurses too for demanding what they consider they are due. But what I can assure you is that this is a government that is responsive to the needs of the Ghanaian people. And so our health minister will do everything within his power to ensure that we get them back to the hospitals. That is not an appealing sight to see.
I like that you recognize. I like that you recognize the fact that it's not a good sight to see, and you also know that in situations like this, some bite harder than the other. For example, you can make up for education when there's a gap, when teachers go on strike. you can make up for extra tuition and all of that. But when it comes to health, you really cannot make up. When it bites, it really bites hard. Yes. And as a country, are we becoming very notorious for when the thing has gone bad already before we try to want to correct it? If you look at how the timelines have been explained by the Ghana Labour Commission, it will mean that the nurses and midwives are quite certain they are bent on going because they started this conversation a while ago. Now, when it comes to health, you really cannot wait till it gets to the very edge of it before you want to nib it in the bud. And so whilst we're talking about the labor laws and wanting to go the legal way, I'm recognizing the fact that you're calling that we curb it. But now, in your estimation, what do you think the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Health can really do for these patients who are sitting in the clinic today to get some service?
Yes, that is the reason why I am saying that whatever it takes, government must engage. I don't think that these nurses are unreasonable. It should be possible for them to reach a compromise before end of day today, because this situation cannot continue. And the buck stops at us. We must deploy everything within our arsenal that we feel can help resolve the impasse, even in the interim. Because, look, our economic situation is dire. I can understand the frustration even on the part of the Ministry of Finance and that of Minister of Health. But the reality also is that we cannot joke with our health system. So whatever we need to do as a government, I can assure you that it will be done to bring them back to the hospitals. Because in any case, these are some of the reasons why Ghanaians give us this mandate. We would not play politics with it and say that, look, you have breached the labor law, and for that matter, the Labour Commission can continue on that tangent because that is their mandate. But we are also entrusted with the responsibility of effectively negotiating with the midwives and nurses to get them back into the classroom. And the law should not prevent us from doing so. And I'm convinced that the Minister of Health would do everything within his power, like I indicated earlier, to ensure that we get them back before the end.
Kofi, some days ago, the government sought to create the impression that if some nurses defy the directive from their mother body and decide to want to go to work, they shall provide security for them so that they can still, provide the services that they'd like to provide in these hospitals. But today we can see from what my colleague has just brought us from Ridge Hospital that even those who had created the impression that, well, we don't care what our mother body is saying, we're going to go to work, still didn't even go to work. It gives me the impression that when it comes to negotiation, the government or whoever is on the sitting table is unable to hold people down with their negotiation powers. Do you get that impression?
Well, I don't have all the details. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago when I saw aspects of it on social media. So I'm still trying to fully bring myself up to speed on the facts. But let me commend Hamza. I mean, unlike earlier when he was very mischievous, he's been very patriotic. And I'm commending you. You've been very patriotic in your approach. And I think on issues, you are not always patriotic. Please, take your credit and let me talk.
Unfortunately, I don't need it from you.
So my point is that I like his approach to the issue. The fact that government must do whatever it takes to meet, at the right juncture with the nurses so we can have this issue ameliorated. The fact is, as Ben was saying, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the people there. The lady from Takoradi, the woman who has eye problems, and the other one. I mean, these are real issues. And the one from Takoradi is even more dire. Her medicine...
She's run out completely.
Run out, and she, it's not like... And some of these things, you can't just go to a pharmacy and pick it. So these are real issues. And I stand with Hamza in saying that the minister... should really step in and make sure by close of day we can bring this whole issue to an end. If it is money issues, let's give them the assurances that we'll give them the money. If it's services, benefits and welfare issues, let's look at it and resolve that as well. I wouldn't want to politicize it just as he did, just to make sure that we have a consensus. It's healthcare, and it's our lives, and we can't joke with it. When you are getting close to 40, as I am, reality dawns on you. And often...
You are now getting close to 40.
Yeah, and you
no ageism, Hamza.
So you realize that life is completely different from when you are in your 20s.
Yeah?
Reality, oh yeah, of course. You see a lot of difference. And your appreciation for issues completely change. And so when you see people in that condition, it hits you, it strikes you right away. You know, so we need to be very careful and make sure we do whatever it takes to...
And definitely it's a fact as well. Once you hit 40, in fact, your late 30s into 40, certain challenges you've never had. You will start to see certain things pop up, and that's where taking care of yourself is very crucial. But we need to do more when it comes to our medical facilities. We'll get into the other newspapers briefly for the sake of time, but I had to bring this up, Kofi, because I saw, and I was looking forward to a conversation with you, on the Washington issue. You know, I was surprised when I heard that you said there had been you had started some sort of investigation, and that even the person involved some people had offered you $10,000 a month on that issue. My simple question is, what did your investigations lead to so that it stayed this long and we are still dealing with that situation?
You know, I made a promise to myself not to comment on the issue again.
Okay.
Largely because, you know, external media houses started reaching out to me.
Which ones? CNN, BBC?
BBC, for example. And I reflected and I said, look, there are internal challenges within the embassy, and not just the U.S., Ghana embassy in the U.S. Embassies across there are challenges. But these are issues we can solve and must solve internally. It must not be the springboard for us to project our nation badly to the global world. So I stopped any and every engagement.
You're making a very fair point, a good point. Yeah. But at the same time, if it could have been resolved, like you say, we hear this situation started in, 2017, and that for at least 5 years, these people engaged in this, a pseudo link to an official website. I've worked in an embassy setting. I keep saying that it was such a shock for me to hear that.
So you know, and even...
And Kofi, if someone was offering you $10,000 a month to do something, do you know what that suggests?
No, see, for me, my thing is that what I aim to achieve in life and for this country goes beyond $10,000 a month. I didn't see the point of taking that money. And
no, I'm talking about from their end.
Oh, no.
Not for you. Yeah. From their end, to be willing to offer that. And are you disappointed it didn't end?
I don't even think they had the capacity to. It's, you know, sometimes it's a case of luring you in.
Yeah.
So, but again, I've made the point that I don't want to discuss this issue. I'm available. If the minister wants to engage me, I'll be more than happy to share my views on what some of the things must be done to solve the issues. Look, this thing goes beyond 2017.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not just one place.
So it's a matter that at least we are trying to resolve. I was just asking, are you disappointed that it stayed on for so long, up to this time?
Oh, again, I wouldn't want to put any adjective on anything. My thing is that I want the minister to get to the bottom of it.
To get to the bottom of it. Let me quickly bring this in. For the sake of time, we have to rush. Yeah. The Ablekuma North issue is also hanging around our necks. Yeah. There have been petitions and march and all of that.
I'm very surprised.
Quick thoughts on that, and then Hamza will come to you on the same two topics. And then
so very quickly, I have to go. I have another station waiting, your sister station, actually. So I have to go downstairs. So I'll just say this very quickly. At this point, I don't know whose responsibility it is to ensure that we bring this whole matter close. Because I just don't get it. Why can't we solve this problem? Is it a matter of re-election? I mean, doing the election over again? You know, so...
But those I've spoken to, I think Evans Nimako and others from your end, they say they don't want to do this again. They would rather have the last...
No, that was just putting it out there. I have to get to Evans on the facts and where the party stands on the issue.
Okay.
I'm just expressing my dismay at the fact that we haven't been able to resolve this issue 6 months after the election.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
I think let me
MFR, please.
on the issue of the U.S. Embassy. You see, it boils down to leadership, and I can understand why my brother is struggling to adopt a nationalistic posture, because something that was going on since 2017, and I'm told that he personally at a point had cause to petition
That was what I just...
Yes, but the system failed to act. It is because in the last, and when you say these things, you are accused of doing partisan politics. But in reality, that is why governments are elected, to take action, especially when it borders on corruption and the international image of our country. And so for me, it was disappointing that even one of them was so concerned to the point that even after numerous petitions, nobody responded, nobody acted. And so if today we have a minister who has acted, I think that it is only fair for us to comment and urge him on, like he has indicated. It might not be just in the United States alone. There are many of our embassies dotted across the length and breadth of this, many other countries. So we can take advantage of that and begin to probe many of these embassies. But now coming to the Ablekuma issue. Yesterday when I saw the minority, I was a bit disappointed in the conduct of the minority. You see, we all know that when it comes to the declaration of election results, it is not within the power of the Ghana Police Service to declare sin. The Electoral Commission is there. So even if indeed you meant what you set out to achieve, I think that the appropriate bin for them to have gone to should have been the Electoral Commission, not the Ghana Police Service. So I'm trying to understand why they decided to rather petition the Ghana Police Service to ensure a declaration of that particular constituencies when they do not have that mandate.
Security to do
now,
that.
Secondly, no, it is not you who would demand that security. It is going to be demanded by the Electoral Commission. And finally,
like
today, my brother spoke about 6 months that a seat has not been declared. Have you forgotten about so? For good 4 years, these guys presided over a system where citizens of 4 constituencies were denied the opportunity of representation in Parliament.
And
you have just been subjected to that for 6 months, and the whole world must come down. I agree that there's a need for us to resolve it.
You don't have to
pause. Thank you, gentlemen.
These are the facts.
Thank you very much.
These are the facts. These are the facts.
Looks like the men like this kind of breakfast. But thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Hamza. Thank you, Kofi Tota, as well, for joining us today on the News Review. You're watching the AM News. Please stay with us this morning.